Welcome back to the Tuesday weekend. We are talking about margaritas this week. And in this segment, we are talking about the recipe, what goes in, what does not go in, how you make your classic OG margarita versus all the variations that you could find in the world these days. So let's begin with, well, the base element to it, the tequila. Most of the margaritas I have made use a silver tequila, and not really particular to brands. Sure, some are better than others. If you have your preference, go for it. But there is a difference, I think, in using a silver versus a reposado or an añejo, just because the aging gives you a different character to it.
So personally, I like to use a silver tequila when making a margarita because it's the most juvenile of the tequilas. I mean, it's right out of the tap into the bottle. It's not aged at all.
Yeah, there's no oakiness to it yet.
No. And when you get into a reposado, rested, that goes from 6 months to a year of being aged, or an añejo, which is a year to 3 years, or if you just like to blow money, you can do a super añejo, which is anything past 3 years and usually $100 or so a bottle. I mean, in the super añejo, you're going to notice a difference. In the añejo, you'll notice a slight flavor difference. The reposado is just going to be washed away by the lime juice. Sure. I mean, there might be a slight subtle difference, but again, we're talking about imbibing a cocktail. If it's your first cocktail of the night, you're going to notice. If it's your fifth cocktail of the night, doesn't matter.
Then save the reposado for shots.
Reposado for later, for sipping, and just use the silver.
It's fine.
Silver would be the tequila that you would just use to make a cocktail. When you go into a craft cocktail place, they are not going to be using the old Carter bourbon for your old fashioned unless you request it. They're going to use whatever is on the rail, or your Vieux Carré, or your Gold Rush. For every cocktail you order there, they use rail to make the drink, so the drink is at least partially affordable.
Yes.
So when you're looking at the margarita, it's the same way. When it was made, they were using the tequila they had. In the United States, they were using straight up Jose Cuervo Gold. Mm-hmm. That's the only tequila they could probably get.
Sure.
There might have been a couple other ones in California or maybe Texas, but the rest of the country was drinking. If it was tequila, it was Cuervo.
I realize, given the definition we just gave for a classic margarita versus a variation, would you ever use mezcal in a margarita? Or
I would make a margarita with mezcal as a mezcal margarita.
Sure.
Ironically enough, at my current employing place, we have a drink on our list called the Margarita. It is a mezcal margarita. The confusion that ensues every time someone orders that.
The margarita versus a margarita.
Yeah, can I get the margarita? Do you want the one off the list with mezcal, or do you want an actual margarita?
Is that a capital M or a lowercase m?
It's a capital M on that one. Yeah, it's exactly like that. And I like the drink a lot. Personally, I like mezcal more in like bourbon variations because I really don't taste a similarity that much anyway to a mezcal and a tequila. I mean, mezcal is so much smokier than tequila. I would almost compare tequila would be like whiskey, whereas mezcal would be like scotch.
Well, when I was in Parkin, the High West Distillery had their essentially silver whiskey.
Their white whiskey.
Yeah. And that was actually almost like a neutral liquor flavor enough that you could use it and probably get away with it, flavor wise in a margarita.
Yeah. It's
really once you start aging it that the flavor notes really do change.
And that white whiskey as well also had like notes of banana and vanilla in it as well, which was really unique, and you could do a lot with it, but it just never really hit with anyone. Everyone wanted to do shots of it, and it was far too harsh to do shots of.
Yeah, exactly. Let it mellow out. Well, So then my next question really is about the orange sweetened element, the triple sec versus a Cointreau, which generally is, or those are kind of your clear orange liqueurs versus a Grand Marnier, which is more of the cloudier orange brandy.
Those three things. Cointreau would be the first one because Cointreau was the name brand one at the time. Triple sec was invented off of Cointreau to be a cheap substitute, much like Margarita mix was invented to be a cheap substitute for lime juice.
Sure.
That is where Margarita mix came from, or sour mix. Bars, the one I'm in included, we all make our own we all make our own sour mix. And it's lemon juice, lime juice, and simple syrup.
Yes.
The stuff on the gun, I'm not ashamed. I sell the stuff on the gun as lemonade half the time. Like, you have lemonade? Yeah. And I just hit our sour mix and people are like, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
It tastes that much like lemonade that people don't notice that it's not lemonade. I started tending bar in Arizona where we actually made margaritas properly just because you do. No sour mix, didn't use it. No one saw it. It was lime juice all the time. Moved back to Utah where, drinking is kind of different. And I was at a fine dining restaurant behind the bar and they're like, someone ordered margarita. And I'm like, where's your lime juice? And they're like, oh, just use the sour on the gun. And I'm like, are you insane? Made my margarita, had the other bartender make his margarita. I'm like, taste that. And he's like, oh my God, yours is amazing. And mine tastes like garbage. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you're not using the right ingredients.
Sure.
So that's where the sour mix lime juice came from. Triple Sec is the cheap version of Cointreau. The difference as well is Cointreau is full proof. Mm-hmm. Cointreau is an 80 proof spirit. Triple Sec is a 35 proof spirit. Sure. It's going to have a little bit sweeter flavor, but there's not nearly the same alcohol content. Making with Cointreau makes the margarita more of a robust cocktail, really. When you're looking at basically 2.5 ounces of alcohol and lime juice and a half ounce to an ounce of lime juice. That's a lot of liquor in one cocktail. And that is how the original margaritas were made. Even in the stories I was reading about people trying them at the different bars in California and Texas and stuff. One guy was like, yeah, it's this, you just want to throw in some Cointreau. He's like, because by the third drink, you're going to be throwing stuff at other people. And that's, if you have 3 margaritas with Cointreau, you're well on your way to throwing stuff. Also noted, tequila is the only alcohol that is a stimulant because agave is a stimulant. All the other alcohols are depressants. Tequila actually gives you energy. That's why you hear so many wild stories about people drinking tequila and doing random stuff that is kind of out of character.
I did not know that.
So yeah, tequila is actually a stimulant.
Oh, cool.
So is mezcal, as they are both made from agave.
Sure. That makes sense.
But yeah, the straight up recipe, that's what it calls for. Salt on the rim just goes with the citrus. I mean, that's a flavor thing.
Exactly. In my research, one of the demonstrators was saying, the salt really does enhance the flavor of the tequila. And he said, if you want to try it at home, go ahead and pour yourself a shot of tequila with a salt rim and one without. Try the one without first, and then try the one with, and see. You can see immediately what the flavor difference is. And if you don't get it the first time, do the test again, because scientific repeatability is really part of the process. But yeah, it really does. It opens it up, just like a plate of food that, if you don't have salt on there, it is missing an element.
Yeah.
And it really, given all of the sweet, the sour, that little bit of salt in there really just, it pulls the whole room together.
It does. It is the Lebowski rug. It's similar to the drop of water in a nice bourbon or scotch, where you taste it and then you take a straw and drop 1 drop of water in it and taste it again, and it is entirely different. Yeah. It just really opens it up.
So I had mentioned previously the Tommy's Margarita in the Tommy's bar in San Francisco in the 90s. They started, instead of using an orange base for that sweet element, started using agave nectar, which, all right, I get, at least you're using the plant that the liquor comes from. There's some,
yeah, it's basically corn syrup.
But basically, yeah, exactly. And especially these days, it's, unless you are actually dropping money on the good stuff, kind of the difference between real quality Maine or New Hampshire maple syrup and pancake syrup, there's a substantial price difference between the two.
Also flavor difference.
And flavor difference, just a quality difference. And now, sure, the defenders of using it, from what I hear, they like the viscosity that it brings, especially when they shake the margarita, because
you have to. When you're using a syrup, you're going to have to shake it. I mean, if you're at home, get a glass of water, fill it up with water, pour syrup in it. Watch what the syrup does. That's what it does in a cocktail. It just sinks to the bottom and makes a nice little candy for you at the end of your drink.
Yay, free candy.
You have to shake it to get it. And I mean, shake it. You have to shake it like a bruised martini to get that stuff to actually work into the cocktail.
Oh yeah. No,
the stuff being sold now is watered. So it's like a simple syrup. So it's not as viscous. And again, at that point, you're basically adding simple syrup. You're adding a sugar that will blend in. You're not adding an alcohol that has a slightly sweet flavor. You're adding straight up sugar.
So then the direct descendant of the Tommy's Margarita is then the skinny margarita, because people didn't want that extra sweetener. So then just, I guess, what the hell's in it then? Just tequila, lime juice, and a little dash of sweet?
Being like a traditionalist, when people's like, can I get a skinny margarita? And I'm like, what do you want me to take out? It's 3 ingredients.
Right.
Well, don't put the agave nectar in. And I'm like, exactly what are you talking about? I
You
mean,
mean
the
that
agave nectar.
nectar on the shelf over there that I haven't grabbed
Yeah.
for yet?
Yeah, that, I mean, there's that. The last restaurant I worked at, they like to use agave nectar in everything. And then you read the agave nectar bottle and it is agave flavored corn syrup because it was dirt cheap. It should just be a margarita. There shouldn't be a skinny margarita. There's no need. You've taken a variation and made that the drink, and then you're making the drink a variation.
So if you're somebody that orders skinny margaritas, just take a step back and go for the classic.
Yeah. I mean, just say, can I get a classic margarita? Or can I get a margarita? Or even ask, do you put agave nectar in your margaritas first?
Yep.
Then say, okay, I don't want agave nectar. You could say, if you say skinny to a regular margarita, it's like, I can take out the Cointreau, I can take out the lime juice. Which one don't you want in your drink?
Behind the bar, I am not going to get offended by you asking me what I put in my margarita, because I do understand that's one of the things that is, unfortunately, kind of different between bartenders.
It is. I was at a local bar down the street here about whether there should be agave, whether there should be orange juice, and everyone had their own opinion. We all made them differently.
I hate to tell tales on my coworkers, but I work at a casino with 3 different bars in it, and you could sit at each bar and get 3 different margaritas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unless you go to each bar and say, okay, here's your spec for
this is
margaritas. This is how you're making them from now on.
So, okay, because I just want to mention it. Orange juice in a margarita. Where did that come from?
That came from someone wanting to sweeten it up and not having access to agave nectar. I mean, you got to remember, in the 90s, I never saw agave nectar in the 90s. I've heard of it, Tommy's. We knew what they were. And they're like, they have agave nectar. And I mean, I'm sure it was inexpensive somewhere, but you actually had to go out and find it. Mm-hmm. We didn't have the Cuervo guy or any of the tequila. And again, tequilas, when I started in the 90s, it was Cuervo till about the mid 90s. Right. And then Patron came out, and then everybody came out of the woodwork in like the mid 90s. And then there was 100 tequilas. But going into that, it was Cuervo Gold. That's the only tequila you saw around was Cuervo Gold. Then like Tanqueria started opening up and bringing in other tequilas, and that opened those floodgates, so to speak. The orange juice thing was someone just a bartender just trying to sweeten it up. I worked with a guy, and he's like, try this margarita. And I'm watching him like, dude, why are you making, this is a simple drink. Why is it 8 ingredients? He's like, yeah, but taste it. And I'm like, yeah, man, it tastes like tequila and orange juice, because the orange juice washes away the flavor of the lime juice and the triple sec. It's like, it's a tequila orange juice. It's basically a tequila sunrise.
And that, to me, I mean, that just seems like a college campus drink to me. I don't know. It just, the base liquor plus orange juice seems very sophomore year.
The problem was that they were still making the margarita, then adding orange juice, which kind of eliminated the flavors of the other 2 things in the cocktail.
Exactly.
Because most of the places I know that made it weren't using jiggers.
No. Oh, sure.
It's like this, like you count the tequila, you'd squeeze in the lime juice, you'd count the triple sec or Cointreau, and then you'd just, pour in some orange juice till the glass is basically full. So you're getting a different drink depending on glass size. As I told you earlier, I came up with a drink of the year in Utah. It was a mango habanero margarita, flat out a variation. Yes, it is a margarita. Yes, it has tequila. Yes, it has Cointreau. Yes, it has lime juice, but it also has mango and habanero in it.
Sounds great.
So it was fantastic. It still is. I mean, it's a great cocktail.
The wings too. Mango habanero.
Oh yeah.
Go to.
Yeah. So yeah, I beat those guys by 15 years. It was fantastic. Cool. But like I was telling you, we did other margaritas. We had a whole different margarita list of just, like the pine nut roasted pineapple margarita was fantastic that my buddy Josh came up with. It was so good. And again, variation. These are margarita variations, our margarita list. When people have, what flavored margaritas do you have? It's like, well, I can flavor it any way you want.
So then actually kind of getting back to the orange liqueur thing, just in my research, I came across something that I personally have no experience with, and that is a dry curacao, which seems to just be a clear orange liqueur. I'm familiar with the blue curacao, and it's kind of funny thinking about using blue curacao in a margarita, but is that something you've ever encountered?
The curacao, yes, absolutely. We've made blue margaritas. There is an orange curacao that is orange colored. Mm-hmm. It's a dye. The blue curacao, it's a dye. The original blue curacao is actually blue because one of the ingredients was blue and slightly dyed the liqueur blue, but it only grows basically in one place, and that stuff's super expensive. But dry curacao is not something I've heard of. I've seen a clear orange curacao, mm-hmm. and noted on the orange curacao, it doesn't really work in a margarita. It is over the top orange flavor.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's something that you'd want to add maybe a half ounce at most versus an ounce of any other citrus flavored liqueur, and it just runs over everything. You don't taste the lime juice. You can barely taste the tequila. It's just, again, it's a very sugary, syrupy liqueur that doesn't have a lot of alcohol in it, and it's used for flavoring. And a lot of times people just overuse that to like make it look blue or make it look orange, or like this has a lot of orange flavor. It's like, yeah, because you put 1.5 ounces of orange curacao in it. Of course it tastes like orange.
Like the lime's not going to be able to stand up against that.
And if you look at all this that we're going through, that goes back to, again, why people added orange juice to it. Well, I don't have an orange liqueur, but orange sounds good, so I'll add orange juice. That's similar, and it's not. It's a juice.
The one other thing I totally forgot to mention very, very briefly, but essentially the lime juice, you are so much better off squeezing a lime fresh than even the bottled fresh lime juice from the
there's the little bottle ones you get from the store and stuff. Like out here, we use there's a juice company called Parkin. We get our lemon juice, lime juice. We get all of our juices from them.
Sure.
And that's what I use, that lime juice.
Right. And actually in commercial kitchens, like we can get in the fresh squeezed, and it's a local producer. So it happened 2 days ago. So it still has that brightness to it. But a lot of the commercially available across the country ones,
have a lot of chemicals in them, and they're not lime juice.
Don't bother. Just go to the produce aisle, grab 3 limes.
It's like Rose's lime juice, not lime juice.
Not lime juice.
Not lime juice.
Syrup. And
syrup.
In fact, there are things I use it in.
Yeah, things I use it in too. But it's when something says lime juice, don't reach for the Rose's lime juice. That's not going to taste even close to what you think it's going to taste like.
Oh, geez. Imagine a lemon or a lime curd and thinking that that's going to work the same as just straight lime juice. All right. Sorry. That's my baker.
Also, and getting into the lime juice, the limes we use here, I think they're called imperial limes. They've got a thicker skin. They are a bit sweeter. The limes used in Mexico and Central America are much, much closer to key limes, where they've got a very thin skin. They are very tart.
Yeah, we do say lime as if there aren't 3 dozen varieties of lime, not even getting into the citron and the lemon and it.
Correct.
Good point.
It's different. When I have a margarita in Mexico, it tastes different than it does here because it's different lime juice.
All right. So my last question in this part is, so you definitely said when you are using, or if you have to, if you're at gunpoint forced to use agave syrup, you do shake it because you need to.
You have to. You have to shake it. Yeah.
And 10 to 15 seconds because you need to.
You really need to get it going.
But if you're just doing your classic margarita, do you shake it? Do you just stir it? Do you just, how do you build it?
I stir mine. If you shake it, you're going to infuse the lime juice more, and it is traditionally proper to shake any cocktail that you're making with a citrus juice in it to kind of activate that juice, get it to foam up a little bit, to get it a little more lively in the drink. Absolutely. Either way is fine.
Okay.
It really is. I prefer mine stirred, but some people prefer stirred martini versus a shaken martini. So it's more personal preference really on that.
Well, and
I guarantee it was shaken back in the day. A drink called a sunflower, which is a nice, simple, easy gin cocktail. It's probably the precursor for the lemon drop martini. You shake that because it's, gin, lemon juice, Cointreau.
Mm-hmm.
I know, almost sound like a margarita. And then it has a Saint Germain in it or an elderflower liqueur in it.
Oh, sure.
You shake that, serve it up as a martini, and it's fantastic. But I mean, you'd hear and then see like something pink come out, or something green come out, or something blue come. Like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
That was the advertising mode of the day.
I will say, a few months ago at the bar, I had a woman order a Midori sour, and she knew what she wanted. She knew what she was getting, and her friend with her saw this brilliantly bright green drink. Said, "That looks cool. I'll take one." Also, and I should have made her just take a sip of her friends before she wasted $7 ordering a Midori sour. It is a very specific palate that enjoys that drink.
Yeah.
Melon liqueur to me, bleh. But it looks cool. It really does.
It does. Yeah, it's got almost that neon green look to it with the sour mix in there with the green liqueur.
Well,
yeah,
especially really with the party lights we had going in there. I should have actually taken a picture of it because. Yeah, but also there's no way I would ever choose that to drink. All right, well, let's take another little break here. And when we get back, I've got a couple little bottles of things over here. So I might try to assemble a little margarita here and see how it goes. So stay tuned. Oh, yeah, and then also for the listeners, if you have experience with dry curacao, I want to hear about this. Or any other comments you have. We threw a lot of information out there, so let us know what you think, and we will be back in just a moment.